thanks so much for logging on to CBS in Denver. It is time for episode 2 of Upon Further Review with Marshall and Michael. I am Michael Spencer. You know my co-host, former Broncos linebacker Brandon Marshall. B-Marsh, we made it. We didn't get canceled after episode 1, so that's a plus. We survived.
I'll take it.
Hey, we got a lot to get into today. Let's get to it. Tell me what is on Marshall's mind as we start episode 2 of Upon Further Review.
Aaron Rodgers. I know everybody's so excited about the possibilities. I saw Bleacher Report just put out the odds that, Broncos are the favorite to land them. But, I mean, how much is George Patton really willing to give up to get Aaron Rodgers? You got to give up the house. They might ask for a Von Miller in exchange. Is that something that the Broncos would do? 3 first-round picks, is that something the Broncos would do? I would love to see Aaron Rodgers in the orange and blue, but, it's a steep price they're going to have to give up.
Yeah, it's a really, really steep price. I think it's really funny if you're George Paton, you're a new GM in a new town where everybody is so hungry for this team to be so successful. And, of course, everybody looks back at Peyton Manning and what he was able to do, leading this team to 2 Super Bowls and obviously winning 1 in Super Bowl 50. And everybody wants to copy that, right? It's a lot easier said than done, though. Right. That is for sure. And as you pointed out in our pre-show meeting, Peyton was a different situation because you didn't have to give up a ton for him because he was a free agent.
Exactly. All you had to do is pay him. All you had to do is pay him. You didn't have to give up any players, any picks, anything. So, I know the rental quarterbacks are usually great. They're usually great because, they're the top tier quarterbacks, but at the same time, how much are you willing to give up?
Yeah. It's going to be a lot. I do think it's interesting. You mentioned the odds. The Broncos have also gone from plus 6,500 to win the Super Bowl to plus 2,000. Courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. So if you placed $100 on the Broncos to win the Super Bowl on Wednesday, you were going to get back $6,500, and now you're only getting back $2,000 because they think there's a chance that Aaron Rodgers does end up in Denver, and that tells you what they think, if he does end up, of how good this team could be moving forward.
Oh, man, look, all I know is if that happens, I'm trying to come to a couple games in Denver. I want to see it, man, because, look, Aaron Rodgers is still the GOAT. But he's still definitely top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. There's no doubt about it. He's 37 years old, but he doesn't look like he's slowing down.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that. Hey, let's get into our thoughts on the draft, right? We talked after round 1, and now we have 9 more players added to the Broncos via the draft on Friday and Saturday, a couple undrafted signings as well. Brandon, as you look at what George Paton did in his first draft as general manager, my biggest takeaway, I thought he did a really good job because, 1, he didn't reach for anything, so he didn't do anything stupid, which is half the battle of draft weekend. And 2, he addressed some serious needs in the depth issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he reached at all. I know a lot of people was kind of confused about the running back selection, Javonte Williams in the second round. But I get it. The 1-2 punch, him and Melvin Gordon, you never know. Melvin still may be suspended or maybe not. I'm not really sure, but I get it because, you want a running back for the future. Melvin Gordon maybe how many got one more year left on his deal? Yeah. So, they want to just try to prepare this guy for the next level. But I think overall, he did a great job in the draft.
Yeah, I think Javonte Williams is going to come in and have an immediate impact on this football team. And Brandon, right? You can't have enough running backs, right? And we saw that. And obviously they lost Phillip Lindsay, let him go basically to the Texans. And so running back was a spot that they needed to fill, and they do. And they get a guy who I've seen compared to C.J. Anderson. I've seen Terrell Davis, which is a really, really high bar. But this is a dude who can come in and can give you snaps right away. And that to me is huge. And it tells you how much they liked him because they were willing to trade up in the second round to get him, to make sure that they got their guy at running back.
Yeah, well, I hope they're right. He looks good. I think everybody kept showing that play where he broke like 8 tackles. I'm like, he looks like a bowling ball. Reminds me of C.J. Anderson because when C.J., he carried the ball, he was tough to tackle, man. You had to drive your feet or you wasn't going to bring him down. So, I think he looks good. He looks promising. A lot of experts say he was the best running back in the draft. So, we'll see how he pans out.
Hey, as a linebacker, when you see clips of a dude doing that, granted it's against college defenders, but that one play against Miami where he lowered his shoulder and sent the defender flying like 5 yards backwards, man, what's going through your mind as you're watching that guy, knowing, okay, this is a guy I'm maybe going to have to tackle here coming up as he joins the pro ranks?
I think I just, I have to drive my feet. He looks like one of them guys where you can't just give a shoulder. You think you could just knock him off balance. You got to really wrap up and drive your feet because, he's a bowling ball. He's what, 5'10", 215. He's compact. He looks strong, got a thick build. So you got to wrap him up and run your feet because if not, he's going to break the tackle. Be
honest, B-Marsh. Did that ever happen to you? Did you ever end up on the wrong end of something?
Oh, it was Eddie Lacy. Year, Eddie Lacy, on the goal line. It was a blitz. It was probably 2nd and 1, 2nd and goal, whatever it was. It sent me on a blitz. I went toe to toe with Eddie Lacy, and it just was ugly. It wasn't pretty. I'm sure the clip is flying out there somewhere.
I mean, I didn't want to bring it up. I was going to let you bring it up, but yeah. I appreciate the honesty there. I really do. And so, I think the other thing that we talked about was depth at safety. Right. Yeah. That was a big position that I thought they needed to improve at because you look at the starters, right? Kareem's going to be there. Justin's going to be there. Justin's got an incredible streak going of consecutive snaps right now. So there's no health concerns there, knock on wood. But I thought they needed to add safety depth. They did that with Caden Stearns. They did that with Jamar Johnson. And that to me was a big move, especially because you expect both of those guys to have a big role on special teams. And that's really important. And that's an area for this Broncos team that has really struggled the last several years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, ever since I think our best special teams year was when we went to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I think we were excellent on teams. We were excellent on defense. But, the last few years has been kind of slacking. So, I mean, I think that's huge. I know Kareem Jackson is coming up on the end of his time in Denver. So I'm pretty sure they want to, fill that role. Jamar Johnson looks good. Caden looks good. So, we'll just see what happens when, how fast they pick up the defense, how hungry they are to be successful in the league. So definitely need the safety depth. Absolutely.
And that's one of those things, Brandon, where I think a lot of fans look at the draft and say, well, we need guys who can come in and play right away, right? And certainly with 1 through 3, that's what you want. But once you get into the later rounds, you take that broad view, that broad approach. And that's what I really like about this draft from George Paton was he took a broad approach in my mind. And yes, Kareem is going to be here for another year, but after that, you don't know, right? No. And so you need somebody who you feel like can maybe step into that role. And I'm not saying that one of those guys is going to grow into be Kareem Jackson, but you need somebody who can replace those guys. And that to me, when I look at this, and I think graph grades, obviously, they're fun to do, but it's really too hard to tell because you don't know what these guys are really going to turn into in 3 to 4 years. But when I look at it, I'm like, okay, that was a position of need, and they went out and got somebody, and this is a long-term game, right? George Paton's a GM for the next 6 years here in Denver, maybe even more so. He's got to be thinking about more than what's going to happen on the field in 2021.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you got to develop guys still. And that's okay, because some guys, they come in and they might not be ready upon the first year, maybe the first year and a half, but at some point, these guys are getting developed either practice squad or just through practice in general. And they're learning from seasoned vets like, Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson. I think it's so invaluable that they are sitting behind those guys and get to learn, just like Shaq Barrett did, behind Von and D. Ware. I think it was huge. And you see how he's doing. I mean, he's killing it.
Yeah, that turned out okay for Shaq.
Oh, yeah.
He broke the bank this off season. Now, Brandon, one thing that stuck out to me was our conversation on Friday.
I want to apologize. My dogs are going crazy in the background.
That's what I thought. I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, my dogs are going crazy in the background.
Does he want to join the show?
I don't know. They're both over here fighting.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, if they want to join the show, you let me know. We'll have them on. But one thing that stood out to me about our conversation on Friday was you talking about how, as a vet, you watched the draft, right? Because you kept tabs on it to see what was going to happen, how that was going to affect your position. And all of a sudden they draft Josie Jewell and, hey, okay, that tells me a little something. And then they say, hey, we're going to start playing Josie. And you're like, whoa. So to me, we talk about all these guys who got picked. Mm-hmm. Now there are some guys who are having that kind of whoa moment. Yeah. And for me, one of those guys is Royce Freeman at running back, and Melvin Gordon to a smaller extent, because like we talked about, I think Javonte Williams is going to come in and take some snaps from Melvin Gordon and take some carries. But Royce Freeman, to me, not only did they go out and draft Javonte Williams, but they added Mike Boone in the offseason, who, oh, by the way, comes from Minnesota. where George Payton was. So you know he's the GM's guy. I have to imagine that Royce Freeman's eyes are really, really open heading into this training camp, knowing that he needs to show out in order to still have a spot on this roster moving forward.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you hit it right on the head right now because he is on the roster bubble now. You know, he didn't pan out. I think they used a third-round pick on him a couple years ago, and he just hasn't panned out the way that the Broncos would have liked. So he's definitely in the roster bubble. I'm not even sure if he'll make this team, to be honest with you. They brought Mike Boone in. He'll play special teams. He'll, maybe get some carries every now and then. So I see right now Royce Freeman as fourth on the depth chart, and he's in trouble.
Yeah, and there are a lot of other guys too who are having that kind of awakening, and I don't know, Brandon, I don't think it's necessarily a surprise to these guys, but I think it does trigger something in guys more than just Royce.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got guys like Duke Dawson, that traded for him. I want to say they traded a late round pick for Duke, and he's kind of like a tweener, corner, safety. I'm not sure where you want to play him, but he hasn't really produced. So they drafted 2 safeties. They brought in a bunch of DBs. I'm not really sure that, he makes this team either. And so, it's just certain guys that, they brought in and it didn't pan out. So they should feel that pressure. They should feel that pressure because at the end of the day, the young guys are cheaper. And that a lot of times that makes the difference. If they're cheaper, and even if it's even if it's close in the battle, if it's close, they're going with the cheaper and younger guy. It just is what it is. So it's in trouble as well.
Yeah, that's the business side of the NFL. And another guy I'll add to that list is Deshawn Hamilton, a wide receiver, and I think that you look at that wide receiver room and you've got 3 guys there who are locked in Cortland, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler. Those 3 guys are locked in. You have to figure that Tim Patrick is probably there as well. And then Deontay Spencer from a returner standpoint, right? So that's 5 wide receivers that you're looking at. And then they went out and drafted Seth Williams out of Auburn. And so I think that there's real pressure on Deshawn Hamilton as we enter this thing. And what's funny, Brandon, we were saying that same thing last year about Deshawn Hamilton. He ends up making the roster and is on the team that whole time, and had some good games. But I think that Deshawn Hamilton is absolutely a guy who is now on the roster bubble.
I'll be honest with you. Deshawn, to me, has been frustrating because he can get open. I know he can get open, but sometimes he can't get open or he just doesn't catch the ball. He just doesn't. I'm not sure if it's the wrong fit. And sometimes, just like I had to move from Jacksonville to Denver and it panned out. But sometimes just, not where he's called to be. So, he's been kind of frustrating. So he's definitely on the bubble as well. I'm not sure he makes his team, but maybe if he has a strong camp, then I'm sure he will. But like you said, you got 4 guys that are really locked in. And Deontay Spencer is so valuable from a return standpoint. I know he had a touchdown last year, so I'm sure he makes his roster as well.
Brandon, how much of that is a mental thing for a guy? Because I think so many times we look at these guys and they're coming in and all of a sudden they go from being 21, 22-year-old college kids to being pros, making a whole bunch of money. And I would have to imagine for a lot of them, the weight of the world is on their shoulders. And so you mentioned fit. And I think some of that too, and tell me if I'm wrong, can be a mental thing, right? And sometimes you talk about a change of location, a change of pace. Man, it just frees guys up. It allows them to just relax a little bit and feel a little bit more comfortable if they go somewhere where there isn't necessarily the pressure of being a 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick because you're not with that team anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I want to say it's just, because it just might not be the right fit. And you just might not enjoy the atmosphere and you feel like they don't necessarily believe in you. Sometimes just getting a fresh start, fresh eyes on you, it'll just revitalize you. So, sometimes it happens. It happens a lot actually around the league, and you might get drafted to one team or picked up by one team. It just doesn't work out, but the next team you ball out. So it happens to a lot of guys, and it may not be any different in this case, to be honest with you. Just like, we don't say a guy like Todd Davis, right? He was with the Saints. They liked him, but it didn't really work. Came to Denver. They loved him, right? It worked out. So it just happens all the time. But a lot of it is mental. Because when I was in Jacksonville, I'll be honest with you, I hated going to work. It was so crazy. And to even say that to you, because I'm living my dream. Playing in the NFL, I reached my lifetime goal. And I was so frustrated. I was so down. I hated going to work, man. I hated it. It was very depressing in Jacksonville. And I'm sure that happens to a lot of guys all over the league.
Yeah. One of the guys I think about too is Isaiah McKenzie, right? and he comes in, gets drafted, obviously has all sorts of issues returning punts and can't hold on to the football. And now he goes to Buffalo, and it's a great fit.
Great fit. He's balling.
Yeah.
He's like he's their Tyreek Hill, utility knife, and he's playing well. He's scoring touchdowns. I mean, sometimes it takes that switch, man, and it just rejuvenates you and revitalizes you. You just get a fresh start, and you could do what you do.
Which I love, because I like Isaiah McKenzie a lot. I enjoyed covering him when he was here. He was always a really good dude, and so I wish him nothing but the best. What about the guys at your former spot, Brandon? We started this podcast talking about how you thought maybe they were going to go inside linebacker, and maybe Josie or Alexander Johnson was going to be kind of on that roster bubble. They didn't necessarily get anybody in the first 2 rounds, but they did add Baron Browning, the linebacker out of Ohio State. They also added Jonathan Cooper, who's more of an outside guy at Ohio State. But should those guys be concerned?
I think Josie should be concerned 100%, because, you know, for my feeling is I think the Broncos want to get more athletic at inside backer, because Alexander and Josie, although they make plays, they're not the most athletic backers, right? Alexander is not really that athletic, but he's so instinctual and he's so smart, he makes plays, right? So they want to get faster, they want to get more athletic, and that's why they brought Baron Browning in. And this might be the highest drafted linebacker since Nate Irving. You know, the Broncos don't really draft linebackers high, right? And obviously we got a new GM, so, you know, times are changing. But, you know, I think Josie should be worried about his spot. They love Alexander. I feel like he'll be the starting Mike as well. You know, he'll be starting Mike again. But I think Josie's some pressure on him. They're bringing in some competition because they want to get more athletic. They want to have elite linebackers, because a lot of teams that have great defenses have elite linebacker play.
Now, of course, there are 2 sides to every coin, right? And for every guy that said, whoa, there might have been some guys that said, right? Like, oh man, okay, thank goodness they didn't draft anybody in my position. And Brandon, when I look at that, I look at the tackle room, right? And we talked about this in our first episode. To me, they gave a bunch of praise in the media to Deshawn James and what he has been able to do and what he has done, right? After sitting out last season, the narrative on him has really changed from the end of last season to where we are now. And George Payton has been nothing but complimentary of the job that Deshawn has done in terms of showing up in OTAs and proving that he really wants to play and be a part of this team moving forward. And I think by not drafting a tackle, they cemented that and said, hey, look, that wasn't just lip service. Now, they did admit that they were thinking about some guys at tackle and they were taken right before them. But if I'm looking at that and I'm Deshawn James and I'm Calvin Anderson, who's that backup kind of swing tackle for them, I feel really good about how this team views me, because they didn't go out and take a tackle, which I don't know was the right move. I think that might be a mistake. But if I'm Deshawn James and Calvin Anderson, I'm like, okay, cool. That's good. I feel really good going into today.
Oh yeah, I mean, it makes sense, because first of all, they gave him a lot of money. The first year he gets hurt, right? Didn't he get hurt the first year?
Yeah, he got hurt. He only played in less than 70 games. Okay. Less than 70 snaps, excuse me.
Oh wow. So that's what, 2 games potential. Yeah. So he gets hurt. Then the next year he opts out. So he's making all this money. Obviously last year he didn't make the money, but he's making money, man. And he was an elite tackle coming out of that free agency class. So I think they were frustrated with him a little bit, but, you know, I think they got to give him one more year. You know, you got to give him one more year to make sure that, or to show that he's healthy and to show that he's still elite as a tackle in this league. So I think he should feel comfortable, or not comfortable, but confident in the vote of confidence that they gave him.
Yeah, I also think that the quarterbacks got a nice little boost, right? And because if I'm Drew Lock, I'm looking at this now and I'm like, okay, what? Go ahead.
Bullets. I know when the 9th pick came up and Justin Fields was still there, I know he was sweating bullets. Like, oh my God, if they draft him, it's over. So, but he's probably still sweating a little bit. You know, with Aaron Rodgers, he probably feels like it's not as possible as people are hoping for. But you know, he definitely got a vote of confidence.
Well, and yeah, for sure. Because if I'm Drew, I'm sitting here looking, I'm like, okay, I have 2 options, right? It's either going to be me and Teddy Bridgewater going into camp competing for that job, which I'm good with, or it's going to be me sitting behind Aaron Rodgers, which I'm good with too, because I don't think Drew factors in. I don't know that Green Bay needs Drew, right? I think they'd actually be more likely to get Teddy in a trade if that were to come to fruition. But they don't necessarily need Drew because they've got Jordan Love there ready to go as potentially their franchise guy. So if I'm Drew Lock, man, I'm sitting pretty too and feeling like, okay, either one of those things, yes, I want to be the guy, But if I have an opportunity to sit behind Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah.
well, okay, I'm not going to turn that down. And I know eventually Aaron's going to go because he's not going to play forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was Brock Osweiler, right? He sat behind Peyton, came in, he played well, and got paid. So, I mean, it was beneficial for Brock. Obviously, it didn't work out in the long run. But if Drew Lock is sitting behind Aaron Rodgers, that's not a bad deal, because I think you're 100% right. If the Broncos do trade for Aaron, I would think that they would ask for Teddy Bridgewater in return instead of Drew, because they drafted Jordan Love first round. He's the quarterback of the future. It's almost like a Tyrod Taylor situation. You know, he's always in. Unfortunately, he's always in a situation where they bring him in as a vet guy. Oh, he's going to start, but then they have, you know, the young guy that they really want to start.
Then he gets his lung punctured by the team doctor.
I can't believe that. And you know what's crazy? Once the first game Justin Herbert started, he threw for 300 yards. I was like, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
He's not going to job back. It's over. It's over.
I mean, you know, he's sitting there like punctured lung, Tyrod Taylor, punctured lung, and you're watching the dude take your job, right? You know, like you're getting Wally pipped, and it's not even your own fault because the freaking team trainer punctured your lung right before the game started. The other position room that I think is feeling pretty good is the tight ends. Yeah. And there were a lot of people, and I didn't necessarily see it, but there were a lot of people who were talking and saying, hey, I could see the Broncos taking a tight end. I think they like what they have, Noah Fant and Albert Okwuegbunam, and I think they feel really good about those guys going in. I think the fact that they didn't take a tight end speaks to how well they feel about those guys heading into next season.
Absolutely. I think, you know, Noah Fant was a real receiving threat last year. You know, I think he played well. I think he's still a mismatch issue for linebackers and safeties at times, but you know, I'm sure the other guy, I can't even pronounce his name. I'm not even gonna go into it.
Okwuegbunam. Come on, man, it rolls right off the tongue.
he tore his ACL, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's still an explosive athlete. Ran 4.4. You know, he tested well, so I think they're confident in that. Who's that third tight end? Is it Beck or is he gone?
Yeah, Beck has potential, and then Austin Ford is on the roster as well.
So Beck is more the blocking tight end.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Noah Fant and what's his name again? How you pronounce it?
Albert Okwuegbunam. Just call him Albert O. Albert O.
And Albert Roberto, or him and Berto, I feel like they'd be nice in that in the 12 personnel set in the red zone. I think that'll be a mismatch issue.
Yeah, I think so too. Hey, Brandon, let's take a look around the league as we recap the entire draft, and what teams kind of stood out to you as you look at the totality of what happened over the last 3 to 4 days out in Cleveland.
Speaking of Cleveland, it's Cleveland. Hey, you know, the Browns are, look, I think they're a force to be reckoned with. I think you got to watch out. You know, my buddy, one of my best friends, Malik Jackson's over there now. I feel like they drafted well, got a corner, got a nice athletic linebacker in Jeremiah Owusu. You know, however you say his last name, he's athletic. He's, you know, I know he's kind of small, but I feel like in today's NFL, you could be 215 and play backer. It'll be tough in the trenches depending on what type of team you're playing and, you know, how durable he can be. But I feel like the Browns did well. I think they continue to do well. It's all going to be on Baker. They have the weapons offensively, you know, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. They got Jarvis Landry, Odell. Look, the Browns is going to be, you know, they're going to be all right again this year.
And I love that, right? Like, I think that's great for the league. I love it for Cleveland. Like, I want the Browns to be good. And honestly, I think Baker's such a lightning rod and is so polarizing one way or the other. I think it's great for the NFL when they are good and when he is in the spotlight. So I absolutely love the fact that Cleveland looks like it is on a trajectory to be good, not just for the coming season, but potentially for a really long time there for the Browns.
I mean, look at them. They almost beat the Chiefs in the playoffs last year. It was an exciting game. I'm like, yo, they might beat the Chiefs. I'm like, oh my God. People was telling me before the game, like, yo, Browns are going to the Super Bowl. They're gonna beat the Chiefs. I'm like, man, you crazy. And when I was watching the game, I'm like, yo, they look good. Yeah. So look, Kevin Stefanski, he has them guys playing well. That was a great addition for them. Great addition. Joe Woods has the defense playing well. You know, that was a good addition as well. So I'm excited to watch them this year.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really fun to watch. And the other teams that I think did really well for themselves, sticking closer to home in the AFC West, The Chiefs did a really good job. That their main priority in the offseason was clearly to bulk up that offensive line, right, and protect Patrick Mahomes. And you do that, you spend your first-round pick to get Orlando Brown. Love that move. You add Creed Humphrey, the center out of Oklahoma. Absolutely love that move as well. And then I think the Chargers did some good things too, and oh, by the way, before we leave the Chiefs, don't sleep on Trey Smith out of Tennessee, right? Fell because of some injury concerns and some health issues there. That dude can absolutely play. And if he can stay healthy, he is going to be a steal for them as a late round pick. And then I know you like what the Chargers did too.
Yeah, I mean, look, the AFC West is tough again, year in and year out. Obviously the Chiefs are at the top of that list, but I feel like, between the Chargers, Raiders and Broncos, it's real fluid. It's real fluid with them. The Raiders always puzzle me in the draft, but I think their best acquisition of the offseason was Gus Bradley. I think that was because, and I'll be honest with you, when I was with the Raiders and I played under the last defensive coordinator, Paul Gunther, he was just throwing too much at the guys. He wasn't detail oriented. Wade was keep it simple and I'm gonna let my guys play fast. Paul, he doesn't let the guys play fast. It's too much thinking. It's not enough like technique work and details. So I mean, the defense always looks bad over there. But at the end of the day, the AFC West is going to be exciting. I hope the Broncos get Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be even more exciting, more primetime games, I'm sure. So, I think the Chargers did well. But the problem with the Chargers, they always hurt. A bulk of their guys always gets hurt. I don't know what it is, if they got a curse or what.
Years. That's always been the case for the Chargers. But I think they did a smart thing. You get Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern, so that obviously helps your line. That helps your young quarterback in Justin Herbert. I also think the wide receiver that they got out of Tennessee, Josh Palmer, can be a really good player for them too. I mean, Tennessee quarterback play has been terrible over the last couple of years in the SEC, but I think that he could be a really, really good player for them. And then you go get a guy in the secondary, Asante Samuel Jr., and it's like what we talked about with Denver, right? You're going up against Mahomes and these guys every single year for the foreseeable future, so you got to make sure that you can play something on defense there too. And Brandon, as we wrap up episode 2 here of Upon Further Review, my question to you, did the Broncos get better this weekend?
I hope so. That's all I have to say. I hope so. I mean, every year I have all these hopes for them in their offseason. And don't get it twisted. I'm still a Broncos fan, and I will be through and through no matter what. I hope they got better. I hope so. So, I want to see them get back on top again. It's been frustrating watching them the last couple of years, kind of depressing, but I hope they got better.
I think they did. I think they did. I think that in 3 to 4 years, they're going to be sitting here saying, hey, this was a good class, for George Paton. And that's what you can ask for. It's funny. We start the show by saying, hey, grades are stupid. The bottom line is he didn't reach. Hopefully in 3 to 4 years, we're not saying, well, at least he didn't reach in the 2021 draft. And he's got that going for him. We need more out of this class. But I think that they're going to produce. And then, hey, man, if they get A-Rod, it is a whole nother story.
Different ball game. He does his belt thing, right? He's the champ.
Yeah.
He's MVP. You know what I'm saying? We need him.
We will see what happens. Hey, that's going to do it for us. Episode 2 of Upon Further Review with Marshall and Michael is now in the books. We will be joining you guys hopefully maybe throughout the summer, and then, of course, all season long, wrapping up and taking a further look into what the Broncos do on game days. All right, for my partner, Brandon Marshall, I'm Michael Spencer. Thanks for joining us here on CBS in Denver and wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, sir.